the artists in Chicago, like Henry Blake Fuller, like then Harriet Monroe, who are the young artists at the time, began to bristle, and Fuller writes a long diatribe about this, that art should not be used simply as a booster for business in Chicago.
Right. And a valid point that people get confused today, I think. So these two people you just mentioned, what's their role in this?
Well, as I said, Fuller and Monroe are very good friends, and Fuller begins to write during the fair, and Monroe does as well. Monroe, who's very young, whose father was a well-known attorney at the time, and who her sister would marry Root, who was in business with Burnham. So she's already, as a family, very intricately connected with the going-ons at the higher levels in Chicago. Young Harriet Monroe, 18 years old, says, you know what, if there's going to be a Columbian exhibition, then there needs to be a Columbian ode. And who better to write it but me? And so this young poet who believes that she should write the ode begins to petition the top committee at the Columbian exhibition to be the poet, to write the ode. And they say, okay. And in my book, I went through her archive at the University of Chicago, and tell the story of all the interaction that she has, first getting the Columbian ode, being allowed to write it, and then after she does so, wrestling with the committee so that the committee doesn't control what she writes in the ode. So she begins to push back a little bit. And then finally, I tell the story about what happens when she is about to speak it, about to have it published at the fair, and a newspaper in New York publishes it. But she'd been smart enough to copyright it. And
so this ends up in the courts, doesn't it?
It ends up in the courts. And in her memoir, she calls the chapter "A Poet in the Courts," which blends together her thinking about about art as that needs to be protected as a legal maneuver with art itself. It's perfectly blending art and business, something that Chicago is thinking about. And her father, the attorney, represents her alongside with another friend of his. And she wins the copyright case. And at this point, at the end of the 19th century, copyright is not very well established for writers. And the New York paper appeals all the way up to the Supreme Court, where Harriet Monroe's case is still used to cite copyright law to this day. She won the right for artists to control their unpublished works, so that you could send off a poem and not think someone's going to steal it. You could, a designer.
And this is one of those things then that brings the attention of writers to Chicago, right?
Exactly.